Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 4 stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. Before we start, this episode is sponsored by my 3D printing website. Check out dangly3d.com where everything has been marked down by 25 to 75%. All of my keychains are only $5 Canadian now. That's like 3 something US. And we just added on these really cute pugs, so check them out, they're adorable. Anyway, that's on my website, dangly3d.com. Alright, on to today's stories. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from DAC6969696969. I'll make your damn pizza boxes. For some background, I used to work at a family-owned pizzeria in my hometown. At the time this story took place, I had been delivering food for them as well as picking up the odd pizza oven shift for close to 8 years. Aside from the owner and 2 of our 3 managers, I was their longest tenured employee. Towards the end of my stint working there, I began to feel incredibly disrespected and undervalued by the owner as well as 2 of our managers. 2 of my regular 4 shifts per week were unfortunately shared with a manager who had started at the job before me, as well as the manager who had started after me. Both of these managers had personal relationships with my boss, and neither of them actually managed anything. Scheduling our shifts was always up to the delivery drivers and waitresses and phone people amongst themselves. We didn't actually have anybody at this pizzeria that functioned as a real manager. Anyway, the manager that had started after me, we'll call her Karen for the sake of this story, had been rudely telling me to fold pizza boxes up for about 4 days in a row. For those of you who aren't aware, when pizza boxes are delivered from wholesalers to pizzerias, they come in stacks of 100, and they don't come folded. There are perforations along the box that make it easy to fold up, but they need to be made into boxes manually. At my pizzeria, it was the delivery people's job to fold the pizza boxes. Anyway, Karen had been rudely ordering me to fold up the pizza boxes for a few days in a row, not once actually asking or saying please. By the 4th day of this, I was fed up with being disrespected by someone who had been working there less time than I had under an imaginary title that didn't even reflect her job duties. Our seating layout consisted of 2 booths that would seat 2 people, so 4 in total per table. We had 1 table in the back that only had 1 booth that nobody used, and 1 large double table with a cornered booth that could fit a party of 10. The delivery guys would sit in the big booth in the back and use the double table to fold up the pizza boxes unless there was a party larger than 4 people that needed the booth. So when Karen rudely ordered me to fold up boxes for the 4th day in a row, I hatched a plan. I told my delivery partner, I'm gonna make so many boxes that they'll never ask me to make boxes again. And I did just that. I folded up enough 12-inch pizza boxes to fill the entire cornered booth in the back. That wasn't enough though, because when I took the boxes from the booth to the shelf where we stored them in the back room, I had space to make more boxes. So I filled the entire booth again. That wasn't enough either though, because I stored the boxes that were in the booth on the 1 table that no customers used. Naturally, since there was more room on the large booth, I filled it up with boxes for a 3rd time, making sure there was no room for any customers to sit. Of course, since my oblivious and unobservant manager didn't notice that I was doing this, apparently she noticed anytime I wasn't folding up boxes, I began storing the boxes on top of the table. I managed to cover one of the 2 tables in the back with 9 stacks of boxes before Karen noticed what I was doing and told me to stop. In my defense, I stopped folding boxes as soon as Karen told me to. Granted, by the time she had noticed what I was doing, there was nowhere for large parties to sit and nowhere else for me to put the pizza boxes. I lamented the fact that Karen would rather see me come into work and do what was expected of me instead of going above and beyond, and she told me to stop being a smart butt. This constant disrespect and underappreciation is what eventually led me to take my talents to another local pizzeria, whose owners actually appreciated the work I did. OP, was there a reason why you folded so easily to the boss's orders? I mean, did you feel boxed in by needing to have that job? I understand your compliance though, folding boxes is a pizza cake, and I hope your boss was really crusty afterwards. This story comes to us from MD Lapla, Malicious Compliance to Catch a Thief, or 3. My uncle, now retired, told me this story. It happened probably around 2005 to 2010, something like that. He used to work for a security company, the kind that handles factory security, night guards, access and perimeter alarms, that kind of job. He was the senior management of the team, handling the night shift for important clients, as well as surveilling the original installation of the security equipment for those clients. He gets a call to do an installation on a factory that has been having a lot of theft. He goes there and interviews the 3 owners separately. Each one has a 30-something% stake in the company. The company is old, and whatever chemistry those 3 originally had is long gone. Each one voices his suspicions that the thefts are inside jobs, and each one even implies that they suspect the other 2 of being behind the theft. Also, all 3 adamantly say they want to know where the cameras are and they want the thieves caught ASAP as cheaply as possible. Uncle vows to comply but says that if they want to be cheap about it, there might be some blind spots that they can't cover. All 3 owners are okay with that. Uncle always told me that the one thing he learned on that job is that Dr. House was right. Everybody lies. So he decides to do the job with a little bit of maliciousness. All 3 owners said they wanted to know where the cameras were. All 3 said they wanted to be as cheap as possible. So Uncle and his team install 3 hidden cameras that, as a whole, cover the whole factory floor, but they budget for 2. The service is apparently a bit overpriced, so they still make money out of it, and there's a bonus for catching the thieves. However, Uncle tells each owner the location of 2 of the 3 cameras separately. To owner 1, he tells the location of cameras 1 and 2, but not 3. To owner 2, location of cameras 1 and 3. To owner 3, location of cameras 2 and 3. They all ask for blind spots. Uncle tells them where they are regarding the cameras each one of them has been told. But those blind spots are covered by the camera each owner knows nothing about. Oh, each owner said they wanted to catch the thieves ASAP as well. Well, that Uncle did. He caught each one of the owners using their expected blind spots to sneak into the factory undetected and gather some inventory for themselves during the first week. As far as I know, the factory changed ownership and Uncle continued providing security for the new owners. What happened to the old ones? I don't know, but I suspect nothing good. It sounds like OP's uncle had a clear focus on who was causing the problem, and they knew the perfect angle to take care of that situation. Only telling them each about 2 cameras was a great way to frame them. Those 3 bosses learned that sometimes the biggest blind spots are the ones in their morality. This story comes to us from Oh Wretched One. Put my cat to work. I got fired from a sales job by a supervisor who was systematically eliminating everyone and hiring in her sorority sisters. I had dark black uniform skirts, pants, and blouses that I'd been forced to purchase. When I was fired, they demanded the uniforms back. I offered to keep the skirts and blouses that cost up to what I'd paid to date, a couple $100 worth, but they said no, demanded all items back, and refused to give me a refund. They did say I could gather it all and bring it to them a couple of days later. After thoroughly reading my contract, I confirmed I was only required to bring them back undamaged. It didn't say they had to be clean. So when I got home, I poured everything in a big pile and called my cat over. She was a long-haired cat who coated everything I owned in white fluff. When she understood that I was giving her free rein to sleep on the clothes, she obliged. 2 days later, I dropped off a garbage bag filled with now white, fur-covered stinky clothes. The supervisor got annoyed, but I just told her she might want to check the contract. These clothes were quite undamaged, just not clean, and that wasn't stipulated in the contract. I smiled sweetly at her and left the office. Kitty did her job quite well, and she got tuna for dinner that night. I eventually won a small claims court case, getting my uniform money back, an all-around win. So, OP, are you saying that they were feline annoyed because of your catastrophic response to their policy? I do love how Kitty clearly understood their purpose and positively helped you with your revenge. This story comes to us from Icy Computer Poop. You want your uniform back? Come and get it. I used to work in a hotel as a porter. We had to wear white shirts and black pants, and they provided us with a uniform which was just a nondescript black vest. I worked there part-time, but also had another part-time job at the post office. I told them about the second job before they hired me. They asked me what I'd do about conflicting shifts, and I said I would work for whichever company booked my time first. So if the post office said they wanted me next week on Wednesday to Saturday, and then later the hotel asked me to work that time, I'd have to say I was unavailable. I would also naturally do the same thing if the situations were reversed. I honored that agreement the entire time I worked for them, and it wasn't a problem for over a year. Then, one day, I get told by the hotel that I have to work an upcoming weekend. I said I couldn't accept the shift because I had already booked one at my second place of work. My hotel boss said, "Well, this is a huge contract. We have a massive wedding taking place on the same weekend as a large conference, and we need all hands on deck." I reminded them, once again, that I couldn't accept a shift if it conflicted with one I had previously booked. Boss got real annoyed and pushy and tried the "we have to be able to rely on you" BS spiel. I reminded him that they could rely on me doing exactly what I promised in my interview, and that they had been able to rely on me for over a year. I also pointed out that it's not reasonable to demand that I work a shift that I hadn't agreed to work. Boss was still pissy when he hung up. They don't fire me, but over the next month, I couldn't help but notice I never got any shift offers. It became obvious I was being fired, but without actually being told I was fired. I called several times and asked if there were any shifts, but was always told, "We have nothing for you at this time," in a cold tone. I checked with my friends who worked at the hotel, and they all said that business was normal, and they could see no reason why I wasn't being offered shifts. No worries, I just picked up more shifts at the post office, and they paid almost twice as much, so cool by me. Another couple of weeks goes by, and my direct supervisor at the hotel called me to ask for my uniform vest back. I asked why, saying that I hadn't been fired so far as I know, I still worked there. My boss just kept sidestepping my question and refused to answer, and refused to admit that I had been fired. He just kept saying, "We need that uniform, you have to give it back." I said, "No problem." He starts saying, "You can drop it off anytime." And I interrupted him to say, "No, I won't be dropping it off." He stopped for a moment, flustered, then said, "But you have to. It's a part of your employment contract." "Yes, I know," I replied. "I read the contract. It merely states that I have to return the uniform when requested. It doesn't say I have to deliver it to you, so I won't. You can send someone to pick it up at a time that is convenient to me." The hotel was in a different city from my hometown, so it was about a half-hour to 45-minute drive to my place. My ex-boss tried to bully me, but funny how losing his ability to deny me work had shifted our power balance. He sputtered and stammered as he tried to figure out some way to goad or coerce me into driving the vest to him, but finally gave up. He said he'd send someone, sometime, so be ready for whenever that is. And I told him no, that he'd have to contact me to prearrange a time that was convenient. I said I'd check my calendar, and he could call me back in a couple of days to make arrangements. Petty, I know, but hearing the exasperation and annoyance in his tone as we spoke was very, very enjoyable. He never did send anyone to pick up the vest, so I ended up using it as part of a Halloween costume. So, OP, are you saying that you weren't invested enough in this job that you would follow up with the constructive dismissal? Because most places, that's not completely legal. You could really disrupt the fabric of this company because them giving you less shifts was a threadbare excuse to try and make you quit. I don't know if you are suited for revenge, but that's probably the route that I would take. This story comes to us from Nina XC. Not allowed in the kitchen? Okay. For context, my mom, 54 female, goes and does a lot of work at the senior center. Will not give names or locations due to privacy concerns. Also, she's not labeled as a volunteer, but she's on the staff board. I still don't understand that either. Also, my mom used to work for a catering company, so she knows her way around a kitchen. Much needed information for later on. Last bit of context, she also makes the coffee, so this is just one example of it, and there's others that I don't want to list. Now for the malicious compliance. Recently, my mom goes into the kitchen and gets her mug for coffee, but one of the volunteers comes up to her and said that she wasn't allowed to go into the kitchen because she wasn't a volunteer. Well, since my mom wasn't allowed in the kitchen, she would do one of two things. One, she would tell someone to get a coffee pot from the kitchen, they get the coffee pot, and she's like, I can't make coffee without the coffee filter, instead of telling someone all at once. Two, she would tell person one to get one thing, and person two to get another thing involving that same task to make the other person feel useful. Now, there's a bit of controversy involved, and I'm wondering if this is considered malicious compliance and slightly petty, or not. So, OP, what you're saying is that your mom brewed up some creative malicious compliance? And now you're wondering if it actually is malicious compliance, or if it needs to be filtered out? I feel like she was pretty grounded in her response, and she gave them a double shot of malicious compliance. If you enjoyed daily Reddit stories, I encourage you to follow and give us a rating on your podcasting platform of choice. And if you're watching and listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really helps us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.